Good morning. Welcome to First Parish in Needham, a Unitarian Universalist congregation of humanists, theists, atheists, agnostics, seekers, and interfaith families. I am Sherry Sklarwitz. I use she, her pronouns. You can learn more about all that's happening at First Parish by going to the website, uuneedham.org, and signing up for our weekly email newsletter or by following us on social media. Our order of service is online too, at the QR code located in your pews or at the website uuneedham.updates.church. Please speak with the ushers, greeters, and Zoom hosts if you have questions or accessibility needs. At First Parish, we covenant to live out our shared values of inherent worth and dignity of every person, respecting the earth, and co-creating beloved community. Whoever you are, whoever you love, whatever your background or identity, whatever your age or stage, whether you walked or rolled in, and wherever you're participating from, you are welcome here. Today, I'm so excited to share on behalf of the Engaged Search Team and the Parish Committee. We have great news. We're thrilled to share that we've hired Emily LaPierre as our engagement coordinator. This is so exciting. Emily has recently returned to the greater Boston area from Martha's Vineyard, where she and her daughter were involved at the UU Society of Martha's Vineyard. She brings with her a deep love of Unitarian Universalism, enthusiasm for growth, and experience with communications marketing and networking with community partners. And after spending some time with her on interviews, I can say that she's absolutely lovely. Emily officially joined First Parish's staff team on Thursday, March 21st, and will have her first Sunday at First Parish on March 31st, which is also Easter and the Trans Day of Visibility. In her first month, she'll be taking over our communications infrastructure and getting to know first parishioners. Then we'll begin membership growth and fellowship projects in earnest. We will publish Emily's work email and phone number in upcoming bell notes. The search team is absolutely thrilled to have Emily joining us. Please give Emily a warm welcome when you meet her in the coming weeks. Welcome again to everyone here in the building and online. So glad you're here.
Sorry about that, quick logistics. As we light our chalice, we have a reading from Norman V. Naylor. Do not leave your cares at the door. Do not leave your pain, your sorrow, or your joys. Bring them with you into the place of acceptance and forgiveness. Place them on the common altar of life and offer them the possibility of your worship. Come then and offer yourself to the potential transformation by the creative process that flows through you and all of life. Our opening hymn this morning is number 29, Joyful, Joyful, We Adore You. The words are by Henry van Dyke and the music is by Ludwig van Beethoven. Please rise in body or spirit. Lyrics are in the gray hymnal, number 29, or in your orders of service or the screen.
Joyful, joyful, we adore thee, God of glory, God of love. Hearts unfold like clouds before thee, airy as the sun above. Melt the
In the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the covenant is a set of promises the membership of a congregation strives to honor with one another and out in the world. Though we cannot all gather together in person during this time, we strive to live these promises every day. Please say along with me the words of our parish covenant as in your emailed and print orders of service. We gather as a loving community to encourage and comfort one another. We gather as a diverse community to support each other in our search for spiritual truth. We gather as a service community to live our beliefs through action and care for our world.
All right, everybody, I'm very excited for our Time for All Ages this morning because we are going to be doing a pageant, a Palm Sunday Power and Peace Parade pageant. Catherine is going to be my co-narrator, and we have volunteers. And don't worry, volunteers, I will let you know when it's time for you to spring into action. So, our story begins a long, long time ago.
Yes, almost 2,000 years ago.
Right? A long time ago, in Jerusalem, in what is now Israel, Palestine, the festival of Passover was out to begin.
Passover? You mean the same Passover my neighbors celebrate with family and friends over for a long special dinner?
Yes, that Passover. Well, kind of, because Passover celebrates the liberation of the Hebrews from slavery in Egypt, but the way it's celebrated has changed a lot over the centuries. So back when our story takes place, people didn't celebrate Passover in their homes. Instead, all of the Jews everywhere who could and were able, they would travel to the temple in Jerusalem to be a part of it. Passover was a time of deep reverence and prayer, but also a time of great joy and hope. Because if God had freed their ancestors from slavery all those years ago, then perhaps, just maybe, God would free them from the Romans now.
Okay, so it's Passover time, and Jews from all over the place have come to Jerusalem so they could be part of the holiday stuff happening at the temple.
Yeah, and Passover always made the leaders of Rome nervous. They knew that the Jews did not like paying high Roman taxes, nor having to break some of their Jewish laws in order to obey the Roman ones. Jewish people didn't like having to follow Roman rules and laws, and sometimes during Passover, Jews would start rebellions. So the Romans made sure to do one important thing every year to remind everyone that they were still in charge.
What did they do?
They had a huge military parade. Okay, volunteers, Pontius Pilate and my Roman centurions, please head to back of the sanctuary now. And if the ushers would hand out flowers to the people on this side of the sanctuary. The governor of Judea, whose name was Pontius Pilate, marched an army into Jerusalem. His palace was to the west, so they entered Jerusalem through the front gate. He rode on his magnificent war horse, followed by an army wearing full, shining armor and carrying weapons. They reminded everyone of the power of the Roman Empire and the full force of which would be unleashed on anyone who disturbed the peace. So with thousands of people crammed into Jerusalem, it was very crowded, and everyone in the city would have seen or heard Pilate and his army coming through. And the crowds on the streets where the parade went through would have been expected and forced to cheer, everyone be prepared, and to throw flowers before the coming army. They had to throw these things and cheer whether they wanted to or not, because it was demanded of them to celebrate Pilate and his army's arrival. So Pilate and your soldiers, I need you to march in triumph. Congregation, throw your flowers. Throw flowers. Any centurion who does not want to go up the stairs may stay down below. Thank you.
I wonder what it was like to see all of those strong soldiers with their swords and armor shining in the sun. I wonder what it was like to feel the ground shake as the army marched through the city's streets. I wonder how it felt to know the soldiers were there because you were there, because they saw you and your family and friends as a threat.
Do you think it made the people nervous?
Yeah, and I bet it made them feel afraid too.
So as we continue our story, Pontius Pilate and the soldiers, you can stay up here, and I need you just to keep looking fierce and at arms. Thank you. Menacing. And now, ushers, we're going to send our palms to the other side of the sanctuary. So, on the same day that Pontius Pilate and his army came into Jerusalem, Jesus and his friends were headed there for Passover, along with everyone else. By that time, a lot of people knew who Jesus was because he had healed a lot of sick people. He'd fed the hungry and taught about God's love. His kindness and wisdom, his healing and teaching made people think that Jesus was powerful. And that was dangerous because the Romans didn't like competition when it came to power.
But Jesus had followers and friends, not an army. He was a preacher and teacher, not a governor or emperor. He wouldn't stand a chance against Rome.
Yeah, in a way that is true. And the Romans, they wanted to keep it that way. The authorities knew that people who have hope, people who know they are worth something, are harder to control. They knew that people worried most about their wealth or status or job. People who are worried about those things are easier to control than people who believe being loved is the most important thing about themselves. And that's exactly what Jesus taught. So when Jesus entered Jerusalem, he knew he would get into trouble. So he decided to make it count. He decided to have a parade of his own.
You mean like Pontius Pilate's parade?
Kind of, but it was different. Jesus had a peace parade. So Jesus and my disciples, if you would gather at the back. So we're going to do a little pretending here that they're coming in via a different entry. You see, Pilate entered Jerusalem from the front gate in the west, but Jesus entered from the east gate. And as we know, the east and the west are opposite. So right away, Jesus is telling people that the power he claims is the opposite of Roman power. And instead of wearing armor and riding a war horse like Pilate, Jesus rides a donkey, which in those days was a symbol of peace and of humility. Pontius Pilate represented Caesar, the emperor, who had declared himself the Son of God and whose divinity was proven by the might of Rome's armies. But Jesus represented the peace of a God that he called Abba, which meant Papa or Daddy. It was a name you'd call someone who you love very much. Jesus wanted people to associate with him the kind of peace that's kept not by killing, but by loving our enemies, sharing our gifts, and welcoming the stranger. And as the story goes, the crowds chanted, "Hosanna," which means, "Save us now." As the story goes, they cut off off leaves from palm trees and laid a carpet of them on the ground ahead of Jesus, because palms were a symbol of well-being and victory. So Jesus and the disciples, you can process, and people in the crowd, please throw down your palms so Jesus can walk on them.
This parade feels different. It feels nice, not scary. I wonder what the people thought about Jesus as he rode into Jerusalem. Didn't some people believe he was the Messiah, the one they had been waiting for, the one prophets had foretold, the one who would free them and bring about a better world?
People believed a lot of different things about who Jesus might have been back then, just like they do today. Some people believed that he was the Messiah, and some didn't. But one thing we know for sure from the story that is told is that he drew a huge crowd, and that crowd drew the attention of the Romans. Many Christians will gather in Christian churches today around the world and remember the last days of Jesus' life. Because he is feared, my script is a little funny. Because as he had feared, Jesus was put to death by Pontius Pilate and the Roman army just a few days before he entered Jerusalem.
How terrible. That is so sad.
It is sad, but while Rome killed the man, they could never kill his spirit or his memory or the impact of his ministry. So on this day, we remember 2 different parades in Jerusalem, 2 different paths toward peace, 2 different ways of understanding what true power is and where it comes from. The question for all of us is this: which parade do you want to join?
The parade of violence or the parade of peace?
The parade of fear or the parade of hope?
The empire's parade or love's parade?
We each must decide for ourselves. Thank you, everyone, for helping to tell our story today. You can return to your pews, and as we sing, we have no children to sing out. Maybe we'll just sing our longtime son as our volunteers return to their pews.
May the long-time sun shine upon you. All love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on.
This is the time in our worship service when we share the joys and concerns that are very close to our hearts and our lives. For anyone not able to be here in the church on Sunday, I am receiving pre-submitted candles at candles@uuneedham.org. And if you could get them to me by the Friday at midnight before the service, I would appreciate it. If you're participating on Zoom or YouTube, I encourage you to type your candle into the chat box to be held by the community watching the service with you. We have a number of pre-submitted candles this morning, and the first is a candle of sadness and concern from Lynn Rackless for her and David's son, Daniel, who has been struggling with mental health and had a heart attack recently. He is recovering in the hospital. We hold them in our hearts and light a candle. And now we have several candles from our staff. We have a candle of hope and concern. The First Parish Committee voted to place 2 signs on our parish lawn, which will go up this afternoon. The first says, "Let Gaza live, ceasefire now," as designed by our Needham Muslim neighbors. And the second sign states, "We are united against Islamophobia and anti-Semitism." We place these signs because we at First Parish act in solidarity with both our Muslim and Jewish neighbors who have faced discrimination and loss during the current Israeli-Hamas conflict. As Unitarian Universalists, we condemn acts of terror, including murder, sexual violence, and hostage-taking. We advocate for the safety and care of all people, especially children, and we work for democracy, self-determination, justice, and peace, both locally and globally, in whatever ways that we can. And by placing 2 signs, we hope to convey the message that the only side we are on as a religious body is rising for the dignity and flourishing of every member of the human family. A full statement from Reverend Katie and the parish president, Elliot Jakowski, will be available after worship. The second is also a candle of sorrow or a candle of concern. And it is for the victims of the violent attack on the music venue in Moscow that has claimed the lives of 133 people. Our hearts break for the families and friends of those killed in this attack. And our final candle is one of joy. We light a candle of joy for Emily Lapierre's joining us on our staff. We are so excited that she'll be part of our team. Her warmth and enthusiasm, you guys are going to be blown away. She's amazing, and we're so joyful. We light 3 candles. If you are in the building and have a joy or concern to share, please come forward and light a candle. State your name and your pronouns if you would like, and briefly describe what is on your heart. The joys and sorrows are remaining silent in our heart here this morning. We light a final candle for those joys and sorrows and for the prayers of our neighbors near and far. May the peace of this sanctuary be felt too, wherever you are participating from, as we remember that even though we are worshiping in different times and places, we are all still deeply connected. As we settle into our time for prayer and reflection, I invite you to set aside your cares. Allow the peace of this sanctuary, or wherever you are joining us from, to settle into your bones and simply breathe. Please join me in the spirit of prayer with these words from queer minister, spiritual teacher, and advocate, M. Jade Kaiser. Spirit of God, when paths of transformation lead me into times of wilderness, periods of learning and of unlearning, realities winding and unruly, may your presence be my steady companion. If I feel afraid of the unfamiliar or unknown, a stranger to where I am being led, remind me I do not go alone. All who seek your wisdom are wandering. When I forget, remind me this is part of love's work. Help me to be patient with my journey. letting love set the pace. And if I feel ashamed, confronted by regrets, embarrassed by ignorance, or trapped by snares of guilt, may your grace be near and let courage steady my way. To you I will turn for nourishment along the way, remembering the simple pleasures of being alive, of being together, of being among the creations of your hand. There is no stretch of the earth where delight cannot be found. All with the desire to further the common good, lead me more deeply into the heart of love. In the company of your promises, faith shall be my guide. Amen. Please remain seated and join in singing Gathered Here. The lyrics are at number 389 in your gray hymnal, in your orders of service, and on the screen. We will sing it twice through.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near.
This congregation has been supported by the volunteered time and treasure of its members and friends since its founding in 1711. For the month of March, we are sharing our collection 50/50 with the Grow Clinic at Boston Medical Center, a program that serves local children diagnosed with failure to thrive. First Parish is in our second decade of support with the Grow Clinic, raising funds and often organizing the young people among us to assist with direct donations of non-perishable goods for their food pantry. The clinic also relies on financial donations for its outreach and educational services that are not reimbursed by insurance companies or government programs. To donate to today's offering, you can use one of 3 different methods as described in detail in your orders of service. You can use text to give, donate through our website, uuneedham.org, or drop a check or cash in the collection plate, or mail a check to First Parish. Whatever way you donate, remember to specify whether your donation is meant for the plate collection or for your annual pledge. And if this is one of your first visits to First Parish, we encourage you to fill out one of our yellow cards in the pew back and drop it in the collection plate, or fill one out online at uuneedham.updates.church. And many thanks to Anne Brain for the beautiful flowers given in memory of Jeanette Anderson. Thank you for everything you are able to give to help support and sustain this congregation and the vital work of our community partners. May the ushers please come forward.
Imagine there's no heaven, was only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living a life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No needs for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one.
That was amazing. Thank you so much. I needed that song this morning. Our reading this morning is adapted from The Tale of the Starfish by Euro-American anthropologist, philosopher, and educator Lauren C. Isley. It all started when a child was walking along a beach upon which thousands of starfish had been washed up in a terrible storm. When they came to each starfish, they would pick it up and throw it back into the ocean. People watched the child with amusement. They'd been doing this for some time when a man approached and said, "Child, why are you doing this? Look at this beach. You cannot save all the starfish. You can't begin to make a difference." The child seemed crushed, suddenly deflated. But after a few moments, they bent down and they picked up another starfish and they hurled it as far as they could into the ocean. Then they looked up at the man and replied, "Well, I made a difference to that one." The old man looked at the child inquisitively and then thought about what they had done and said, and inspired, he joined the child in throwing starfish back into the sea. Soon, others joined, and all the starfish were saved. Here ends our reading. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And I don't know about you, but I have been feeling really poor of spirit of late. The unrelenting bad news of war and death, the vitriol of our presidential campaign, and the rising intolerance in our country and around the world, my spirit is weary. It is tattered and maybe a bit frayed. And recently, my daughter asked me how I could bear it, the overwhelming loss of life in the wars in Ukraine, in Gaza, in Myanmar. "How do you bear it, Mom?" they asked, their voice trembling with sorrow. I didn't have an answer for them on that day as we ran errands together. But their words have been clanging and ringing in my heart ever since. How do I bear it? I feel like the man on the beach, so overwhelmed by the thousands of starfish washed up and dying. "Child," he says, "why bother? You can't save them all." How do I bear it, sweet child of mine? With great difficulty, but I will try to explain it to you. I begin with grief. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. I grieve. I grieve for the lives that will never be fulfilled, for all the good that they would have done, for the scientific discoveries, the healing, the art, and the beauty that the world will now never know. I grieve for those hopes crushed and for the rise in hate and intolerance that leaves so many living in fear. I feel my sorrow and I grieve. And in my grief, I honor and remember all that the world has lost. And I allow my tears to wash away my sense of overwhelm, to clear away the belief that there is nothing that any one person can do. Tears fall that cleanse me of my paralysis and my despair, because as long as I grieve, I know that I also love. And knowing that there is love at the root of my grief offers me comfort. Love transforms my grief from a paralyzing emotion into a galvanizing agent, to pick up that starfish and throw it as far as I can back into the ocean. How can I bear it? I draw on mercy. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Mercy asks me to show the world my tender heart, to place love at the center as the core and foundation around which I live my life. It means that I must see the sacred and the divine in all beings and in all of creation. It calls me to be like that child on the beach who offered us a model for change. I made a difference to that one, they declared. The man on the beach could only see the number of starfish. He could only see the thousands. He didn't see, as the child did, that each starfish was important and beloved, that each starfish wasn't a number, and that the world was saved when each starfish was rescued. Because as Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. reminded us, We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects us all indirectly. My beautiful daughter, I know how easy it is to be caught in the role of the man on the beach, bearing witness to death and to loss, losing hope that anything can be done. And I need to remind you that we are not powerless and we are not alone. We are bound together in a network of mutuality. How can I bear it? I remind myself that I'm not alone and that there are peacemakers in this world. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. Doing the work of creating peace in our world is sacred and holy work. And I do not always feel strong enough or sure enough of the right direction to go. And like the man on the beach, I think that there are too many tragedies and I am overwhelmed. But I trust that there are always peacemakers out there showing us the way. For those of us who are perhaps reluctant to engage out of uncertainty or overwhelm, not knowing what the next step, the right next step is, remember, always remember, that the world needs followers. Peacemakers aren't always only the visionaries. Sometimes peacemakers are simply people willing to join in, to follow another's lead, saving the world one starfish at a time. The beachgoers, they were milling about in silent witness. They seemed unsure what to do. Perhaps, like those crowds welcoming Jesus in Jerusalem, they were silently crying, "Hosanna, save us, help us." Perhaps those beachgoers were feeling overwhelmed by the magnitude of the problem and amused that anyone would try against formidable odds. "Look at this beach. You can't save all these starfish. You can't begin to make a difference." The man's words possibly echoed the thoughts of the other beachgoers. But something happened when the people on the beach witnessed the child's courage and the man's change of heart, and they began to help. And in joining together, the problem was not insurmountable. They saved all the starfish, one small act at a time. And finally, I remind myself to move forward, even when I'm anxious and afraid of the consequences of my action. Blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of God. As a UU, I don't have much of an understanding of heaven as a reward for living in a world that is full of challenge and difficulty. Instead, I draw on our Universalist ancestors who offered the understanding that righteousness means standing against injustice. It is saving one starfish, even as we know that we cannot save them all. And we know that standing against injustice is not without consequences. We only need the reminder of Reverend Dr. King to know that persecution is real. But still, we are called to lean into that garment of mutuality and of destiny. Because when one is hurting, we all feel the harm. And in acting against injustice, in our efforts to make a difference to one person, to one being, to one starfish, we are co-creating the kingdom of God here on earth. We are supporting the spirit of life and of love, creating beloved community in the here and the now. How can I bear it? Often I can't, but I try in a small way to make a difference to one person, in a welcoming smile to someone who feels alone, in placing a yard sign telling the world that war, violence, and hatred are wrong, in being part of a community that hosts a name change event for our trans siblings and beloveds, in providing a meal for someone in need, in many small steps that make a difference to the person in front of me. To love the hell out of this world, one person, one act, one starfish at a time. And maybe, just maybe, this is how we bear it. We grieve. We open our tender hearts to the world. And when we witness one person doing one small thing for the person in front of them, we are encouraged to do the same. And when enough of us step in and work together, change happens. Sweet daughter, this is how I bear it. This is how I know. It is the only way I know. And in closing, here is my blessing for you. A blessing for getting through when the world's tragedies feel impossible to bear. Blessed are you when you love abundantly, when you join in community with others, when you offer someone the space to practice being their best self, when you share a vision with others of a better world than the one we're living in now, when you nurture our earth, when you care for stranger and friend alike, when you lift another person up in their joy, and when you comfort them in their sorrow, when you hold hope when hope seems impossible, when you love the hell out of this world, even when it's hard to do. This is my blessing for you and for all of us, because I know that when we collectively do this, we expand and transform the limits of possibility. May it be so. Our closing hymn this morning is We're Gonna Sit at the Welcome Table. It was adapted from an African-American slave spiritual called I'm Gonna Eat at the Welcome Table, with the table as a metaphor to freedom in heaven. It gained a new interpretation during the civil rights movement, particularly during the sit-in campaigns at segregated lunch counters. Please rise in body and spirit and join in singing the words found at number 407 in the gray hymnal, in your orders of service, and on the screen.
We're gonna sit at the welcome table. We're gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days, hallelujah. We're gonna sit at the welcome table. Gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days. All kinds of people around the table. All kinds of people around the table one of these days, hallelujah. All kinds of people around the table. Gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days. No fancy style at the welcome table. No fancy style at the welcome table one of these days, hallelujah. No fancy style at the welcome table. Gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days.
I like that. It's a peppy little song. We've got a lot of announcements today, so just sit back, relax, and buckle in. Budget Drive update. It's good news, folks. We have reached $300,666 pledged, which is roughly 90% of our goal. And guess what, folks? You still have time to pledge. Woohoo! Yes. So, another monetary announcement, the youth group is going on a trip to work at the Virgin Islands National Park during April break. And if you feel called to support their trip, you can use text to give to support their trip. And I did not write down what that text to give number is, but I am 100% certain it's in your bell notes, and you can look it up there. I'll get that information for you maybe during social hour. On Monday, we're having another one of our Israel-Gaza conversations, and this time we have invited our first parishioners of Jewish heritage to come and speak of their feelings and their thoughts and their experiences since October 7th. That will be on Zoom tomorrow night. Lunch Bunch is gathering at 12:30 with the ministers on Wednesday, and we've got a number of Easter week events. Our usual Vespers is going to be a Maundy Thursday Vespers. It will be in person and online. So join us for a UU communion here in the sanctuary or online. And on Friday, Reverend Katie and I will be joining in an ecumenical Good Friday service at Carter Memorial Methodist Church. And finally, on Sunday, Easter Sunday, the service also coincides with the Trans Day of Visibility. And the service will explore themes of transformation, transfiguration, and rebirth. And after the service on Easter Sunday, we'll have our traditional Easter egg hunt, and we will also have a honk rally in support of Trans Visibility Day. And we also have our regular weekly events of Writing Escapes, Vespers, and Meditation Ministries on Thursday, Creative Escapes on Friday, and I'm just remembering, I forgot Spring Feasts. We're running that again. Lynn will be in Parish Hall. Please sign up for one of these friendly feasts where you gather with your friends and fellow parishioners to share a meal. I think that was it. Whew. All right. As always, we extinguish our chalice with words promising to carry its flame in our hearts until we are together again, no matter how long it is until we are all together again. Please join me from home or here in the building in saying these words written by UU minister Reverend Elizabeth Selly Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, nor the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our benediction was written by Edward Everett Hale. It's number 457 in our gray hymnals. I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do. May we go forth into the world doing the small somethings that we can do, knowing that even small somethings can make a difference. I did forget one last announcement, and it is a plea for help picking up flowers and palm fronds so poor Billy doesn't get stuck with the mess we made. Thank you.